I'm Mayor Chris Coleman from the City of St. Paul, and on behalf of not just the City of St. Paul, Ramsey County, the City of Minneapolis, Hennepin County, the entire region, we are very, very honored and pleased to welcome Secretary LaHood to Model Cities. And I want to thank Model Cities for hosting us. Administrator Rogoff is here with us as well, and we have a full house and a full list of folks that are going to speak to you in just a few minutes. We are unbelievably excited today about the fact that finally the voices of our community have been heard loud and clear in order to get stops built into this project. This community knows all too well what happens when you become the victim of transportation decisions as opposed to the beneficiary of transportation decisions. Today, we understand that we will be the beneficiary throughout this community of an administration, of a secretary, of an administrator that understand that in order to have the kind of benefit that can come from a project the size and scale of the Central Corridor, then the stops have to be present in the communities of the people that are most dependent upon transportation. There are a lot of voices and a lot of folks that have held that vision. They have worked very hard. There are a lot of people in this room that deserve credit. But I want to say that sometimes credit has to begin at the top. When Barack Obama came into office, and when he appointed Secretary LaHood as a Secretary of Transportation, they understood that it was time for some just basic common sense in some of the projects that were occurring across this country. That it didn't make sense to put $1 billion worth of investment to have something move through a community as opposed to directly benefiting that community. When last week, when Peter Rogoff announced on behalf of Secretary LaHood that the CEI would no longer be the barrier to good transportation and transit decisions, we made a huge step forward. I want to thank you, Mr. Secretary. I want to thank you to Peter Rogoff and to all of you that kept that dream alive. We said from the beginning we were going to figure out a way to get this job done. We didn't know how it was going to happen, but when all of a sudden a little common sense was interjected into the process, then things got rolling and things got done. But there are a couple of other folks that I want to thank for that. The Funders Collaborative that stepped up last week and said that they would provide some additional resources to not just make sure that one additional stop or two additional stops, but all three additional stops will be built, has played an incredibly important role. And Lee Sheehy from the Funders Collaborative and Jonathan Sage Martin is here, a lot of folks in our wonderful foundation community that has played such an incredible role. But I also want to thank all of our county commissioners, not just in Hennepin and Ramsey County, but on really the 5-county region that has put money to make sure that some common sense decisions could also be put into the process. Commissioner McDonough, who you'll hear from in a minute, Commissioner McLaughlin in Hennepin County, and all those that have had the ability and the foresight to really start putting some resources into these projects. I am just so grateful that this community that still has the hurt and the remembrance of Rondo can today say, we will benefit by this next transit decision. We will not be the victims. Thank you so much for being part of that.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
And thank you for coming to Ward 1 today. My name is Melvin Carter, and I represent this area on the St. Paul City Council. With my wife and daughters, I live just 2 blocks from Western Avenue, so my family is one of those for whom light rail, as previously planned, would have actually decreased transit service. Well, that's never made much sense to me. $1 billion transit improvements in our community should improve transit in our community. Today's announcement is a victory for the countless people who stood up for these stops for over 5 long years. As one, we worked, we prayed, we shouted, and now we won. Central Corridor Light Rail Transit will stop at Hamlin, Western, and Victoria Avenues. I don't have to tell you what a huge victory this is, but our work to ensure that this project will serve those of us who chose this community long before light rail transit is far from done. I'm happy to see the impressive cast of people in the room today, and I'm glad to know that we all understand the importance of this project and its impact on our community. And I look forward to all of us continuing to work together to mitigate the loss of on-street parking, to help small businesses survive construction, and to ensure that we will build our future here by supporting our diverse set of residents and businesses, not by allowing them to be displaced. Looking forward to the challenges ahead, this work will often feel just as impossible as our 3 stops did just a few years ago. We have a lot of work to do, but I know that with dedicated elected officials at every level, a community that will never stop pushing, and a federal administration we know will always say, yes, we can do what's right, even when it's not easy, that we have every resource we need to ensure that light rail will not only stop for our community, but will pick us up and carry us forward too. So today we celebrate, tomorrow it's back to work.
Thank you. Just for a quick moment, I want to acknowledge that this is a victory for all of us, and especially for those along the line who are closest to these 3 previously missing stations. We now know and can rest assured that the train will not pass us by. Thank you to the entire coalition already mentioned. Thank you to the partners who've come to the table to fund these stations completely. And we know now that as we work together, as we have on this issue, on all the others that face us, we will ensure that we will realize the great opportunity that Central Corridor is for all of us. Thank you for those couple of moments, Melvin. And now, my commissioner and chair of our regional rail, Commissioner Jim McDonough.
Thank you. Commissioner Redmond, I got to recognize Commissioner Redmond. Central Corridor not only comes down the middle of many communities, but it comes down and is through 2 county commissioner districts. And Commissioner Redmond has been an advocate, a tireless reminder of the importance of these stops. There's been a lot that's been said here, and there'll be a lot more that's been said. There's a couple things that I think are really important for us to just take a moment to reflect upon in our community. We've talked about some past harm in the community and some of those scars that aren't healed yet. We talk about the opportunities that we've been moving forward on a possible light rail line, and those opportunities have been talked about for 30 years, and we're getting awful darn close to actually moving forward on a reality. And along with that comes a lot of difficulty, but I think one of the things that we have to just take a moment and reflect is our ability as a community to solve these issues together as partners, to build that trust locally, to build the trust with the community, with elected officials, with the city, with our state delegation, our federal delegation, the leadership in Washington, D.C. That trust and that relationship can solve these problems. I believe there's truly no problem that is insurmountable for us to continue to move forward. That doesn't mean to say there aren't going to be more meetings in community rooms like this, up and down this line, and consternation about what we're going to do next to solve that next issue. But I have confidence in this community. I have confidence in this community that we will be able to continue to do that, and we'll do it in a respectful way. We'll do it in a way that continues to build trust in this community, and we'll do it in a way that will continue to build on the vitality and the potential that this line has to rise all of our boats, to rise everybody's boats along this corridor. And I appreciate the opportunity as Ramsey County Regional Rail Authority to be a part of that process. Thank you.
Let me just say very briefly, congratulations to the Stops for Us Coalition. Thank you very much for the people who worked so hard. I mean, Mayor Coleman, Commissioner Carter, Councilmember Carter, and many, many others who just really wore my eardrums out on this. And I just want to say, and this is a lesson, you know, we talk about the civil rights movement, what it means and what it represents. What it's really about is access. And this represents victory today. So this should be a signal to everybody that if you stay involved, you get involved, and you come forward with your ideas, you can win. Yeah. So send the word out. Thank you.
The energy in this room reminds me of a tent revival with people speaking in tongues. And, well, it's not Pentecost. The translation is, elections matter.
That's right. That's right.
Because of an election, we have $8 billion more on the table for high-speed intercity passenger rail than we've had in the history of the country.
All right.
We have funding for Amtrak on a sustained basis in the president's budget. We have a stimulus bill that the president urged, encouraged, and expanded beyond what the House had passed in September of 2008 and would not be signed by the previous administration. And now we have $8.5 billion invested in transit under the stimulus, and the capacity to move on to a new future. I call it back to the future, to reclaim our past and invest in it for the future of America, where we had streetcars and intercity passenger rail, where we had subway systems and that were abandoned. We're now reinvesting in them. And we're adding 1 million new riders a day on America's transit systems every day. 367 million new transit rides last year. 10.6 billion transit rides across America. The Hiawatha Light Rail achieved its 10 millionth passenger 9 months ahead of schedule. Every transit system, every light rail in America tripled its original projections of ridership and usage. And what you're proving here with the announcements today about the 3 lines, the 3 new station stops added, they will serve the most needy, neglected communities in our midst. I remember very well in Duluth, it was just fine for I-35 to go through steelworker community, to wipe out homes, people who worked in the steel mill in Duluth. But when it got to the Big Oaks in East Duluth, that highway stopped dead. Well, we can't do that anymore. And we're not going to do that, because we have leadership that says invest in America, invest in our communities, and respect their needs, and give people rides to work and to opportunity for the future. And we have a secretary who believes that. The change in the cost effectiveness index to invest in transit projects that emphasize the benefits of transit, and emphasize the economic development, the job creation, and the community togetherness that comes from transit is the future of transportation. And this secretary, Ray LaHood, is the reason we're doing that. And this president is the reason we're doing it, Barack Obama. Thank you all for being here.
Thank you, Mayor. It is just great to be here. And I hope you all notice, I'm going to introduce Secretary LaHood when I'm done here, but I hope you all notice that he's wearing a tie with purple on it in commemoration, and he did it deliberately for the Vikings. I wanted to just start with a story, and this was something that happened to me a few years ago. My daughter was a little younger, and my husband, daughter, and I went to see that movie Polar Express, you know, where the train, they have the big train, and Tom Hanks is in the movie. And if we get out of the movie, and she looks at me, she goes, "Mom, there's one thing in that movie that wasn't true." And I think, well, what was it? Like the million elves at the North Pole? Or was it when the whole glacier froze over so the train could go over? What one thing wasn't true? She says, "Mom, you know at the end when the conductor, that was Tom Hanks, looks down at the little boy and says, 'Little boy, just get on the train, get on the train.' And the boy's hesitant, looks down at the boy and says, 'You know, it doesn't matter which way the train is going, just get on the train.' She looks at me, she says, 'Mom, it does matter which way the train is going.'" And let me tell you where this Central Rail is going. It is going from Minneapolis, and it is going to the Hamlin stop, and it is going to Victoria Avenue, and it is going to Western, and it is going to St. Paul. That is where this is going. So we are excited to be a part of this, and a part of a much bigger system that we're starting to see come in. I was at all of those events for the train, the North Star train that's going to Big Lake, and we want to extend it to St. Cloud, Mr. Secretary, as well as the work that's being done in southern Minnesota, the work that's being done in northern Minnesota, and then, of course, the $8 billion that the chairman mentioned, the recovery package, that we're very hopeful we can start funding that high-speed rail from Chicago to the Twin Cities. That's what we want to do. So this is all part of a bigger plan. And when I look at all the people here and the excitement and think of what I've seen all over the state, this is about jobs for our state, but it's also about congestion. People are sick of being in traffic. It's about volatile oil prices where people know that if they've got rail, they've got an alternative for their family. So I just want to thank you. I'm proud to be a part of this, and I'm certainly proud to introduce Secretary LaHood.
Thank you all. Thank you. Well, I'm delighted to be here to be a part of your celebration. This is an extraordinary day, I know, for all of you that have worked so hard, and it's a pretty magical formula that makes all of these things happen. But the key to it all is that you've all stuck together on this. You were not divided, and you were willing to really hang together and to be patient and to do what was right for the people that you all serve. And that's the important message, I think, today, that if you have a good project and you know it makes sense for the people, then to work with your delegation from Washington and to work with other elected officials to make it happen. But this is a lesson for people all over America, that when people work together, set aside their own agendas, and really pull together, many, many great things can happen. And we'll use this example as we travel around America and persuade people that Americans want to get out of their cars. They want to have opportunities for walking paths, biking paths, light rail, more transit, more opportunities to travel around their communities in ways that they frankly haven't had in a long, long time. One of the reasons that we really changed the consideration for these kinds of projects is because we know that there are lots of other things we should take into consideration, like livable communities and like aspects of a community that we know that people are really looking for. And that's the reason, because you all have hung in here and been patient with Washington, that this kind of opportunity for this transportation system, which is for the people. I mean, that's the bottom line. All of you that have worked hard on it know that it is for the people. And so I'm really here just to say congratulations. Thank you for hanging in there. I agree with what Jim Oberstar said. Elections do make a difference. And there is an opportunity now to really look at transportation in a way that I think it hasn't been looked at in a long, long time. You should be mighty proud of your delegation. And what I mean by this is not because they work hard on transportation issues, but because of the courageous vote that they made about a year ago when the president said, we have got to stimulate the economy. And there's a way to do that by infusing opportunities for good-paying jobs, whether it's on roads or bridges or building new buses or building transit facilities, getting into the high-speed rail business. We could have never done that. We could have never really provided the opportunities around America if it hadn't been the courageous votes of your representatives in Washington, who cast a very tough vote for almost a $800 billion economic recovery plan, of which $48 billion came in the form of transportation funding. So you're mighty lucky to have people that are willing to stand up and say, we have to bite the bullet, we have to make a tough vote for the people, to get our people back to work, to get people into good-paying jobs. We have made a difference. I don't care what people say. The economic recovery plan has made a difference in the lives of Americans to get good-paying jobs, sustainable jobs, create green jobs, and create the opportunities that we're talking about here today, so people can have good, affordable transportation. So congratulations for having good leaders, having the good sense to keep sending them back to Washington, and also to being willing to really working so closely together. You've made a difference, and I guarantee you we'll be using you as an illustration, as an example around the country. If you hang together with a good project for the people, you can make a difference. You're all making a difference here today. Thank you very much.